while back, while spending the summer in Michigan, I thought it would be a great idea to camp on my own in the vast woods that lie on the other side of the river. I knew how dangerous this would be. There had been bear and mountain lion sightings more times than before, but I knew that was the tree I had been waiting for. Maybe I could finally see how far I was willing to go before I chickened out of something. After saying my goodbyes to my family and making sure I had everything, I made my way to the river. I knew where to step so not to drench my bag, tent, and sleeping bag. My pants still got wet. Good thing I brought a spare. I made my way and walked half a mile deep, so I was far enough away where I wouldn't think about dipping cause I was bored, but close enough to where if I needed to run I could. I began digging a hole to put sticks, twigs, pine straw, and paper to start a fire. I knew I had to be careful not to let the fire spread, so I used the dug up dirt to build a sort of wall around the pit to stop any fire from escaping. After about 2 hours, it began getting dark. The fire had run for a majority of those 2 hours, and the bottom had already been completely covered in burnt wood. So I set up the tent and got ready for bed. I couldn't have been asleep for longer than 3 hours before I woke up to the sound of a branch falling. I figured the wind knocked it off. A lot of trees were old and had begun rotting, so I fell back asleep. Not long after, I woke up again. This time I did not know why I woke up, but I knew I didn't wake up randomly. So I stayed up awake for a little bit longer to see if I could hear something. After no sounds other than bugs were made, I fell back asleep. At around 2 in the morning, I woke up to use the bathroom, remembering earlier when I woke up for what seemed to be no reason. I was a bit skeptical about going outside of my tent, but I knew Mother Nature would do her thing one way or another. So I grabbed my light and my knife and made my way outside the tent. The sky was as clear as the most perfect diamond. I could see every single star. The air was as fresh as ever, and the woods felt dark and empty. But I knew I wasn't alone. I knew that the moment I stepped out of that tent, something or someone had begun watching me. I could feel it. What tipped me off even more was that the hole where the fire had been was completely filled in with what looked like handprints over the top. Quickly, I went over to the nearest tree and did what nature does best. I then proceeded back to my tent, still having the feeling of being watched. When I got back to my tent, it felt a bit off, like something had been moved or someone had been in there. But I shrugged it off as me being paranoid. So I crawled back into the tent, zipped it up, and tried to fall back asleep. No later than an hour after, I heard a shriek coming from the woods. It sounded neither human nor animal. Scared and pumped with adrenaline, I grabbed my knife and my light and darted as fast as I could to the river. I don't know what it was that allowed me to keep a full sprint for half a mile. I still don't know if it was pure fear or those thundering stomps behind me, or the adrenaline and the will to live that pushed me to make it to the river. Either way, I made it back to the house and ran inside, locking the door and calming down the dogs. I never saw whatever chased me that night, but I knew it was neither a bear, mountain lion, or human. I returned to the campsite in the morning with my stepdad when the sun was almost directly above us. My tent had been torn apart, my sleeping bag gone, and all the food and water I had packed all over the place. We gathered up what we could. We reported the story to the local sheriff's department. They said they would look into it. I don't think they ever did, because recently a story of a young man around my age and his father had appeared on the news, and the text sent by the father to the mother matched what I had experienced. A few months later, both were found dead, mangled and rotted so much that they could only recognize them from the shoe sizes and the healed fractured points on the dad's right arm. To this day, I do not know what chased me, nor do I want to know. All I know is that I'm safe in my permanent home in the southern United States,